Ask me anything about politics. My name is Jarrett, and I am here to answer all of your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics, and nobody's going to judge you or roast you or make fun of you or try to debate you or anything like that. Any sort of like negative political experience. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions about politics. So if you got any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here. What is up, anything debating? Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Democrat, a Republican, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. I'm not here to yell at you for your political beliefs or opinions or how you voted in the past. I'm not here to call you names or get into fights with you or try to prove that I'm smarter than you. What is up, A? What is up, JP? I am just here to answer all of your questions about politics in good faith. All of this, all our social media sites, everything that's going on the internet is basically just a machine for getting you to believe wrong things about politics and about other voters. So, this is the show where we can all kind of like take a chill pill and hopefully we can get past some of the talking points and actually get into the substance and recognize that we're all people just trying to live our fucking lives. A asks, are you pro-Israel? I am pro the citizens of Israel the same way that I am pro the citizens of Palestine and France and Germany and Russia and Korea and North Korea, etc. Now, the government of Israel, on the other hand, is unconscionably barbaric. They are doing war crimes and genocide against the people of Palestine. They're starting wars with their other neighbors. So the entire far right coalition of the Netanyahu government, which I believe includes other notable politicians. I think the dude's name is Ben Gvir. Some of those other right wing ding dongs. They got to go, and the people of Israel need to vote them out of power. And failing that, the government of America should stop sending them money and weapons. Oh, right. What is up, John Abbott? Good to see you again. Flesh Lives, good to see you again as well. Is the California hospice fraud real? Big thoughts. I have not heard anything about that specifically. I gotta be honest, it sounds a little right-wing conspiracy theory-y, or one of those things that's like based in fact, but that it's like already been dealt with or not a big deal or anything. So yeah, I'll dig into it a little bit, but yeah, a lot of those fraud charges are like ignoring the taxpayer funded fraud that happens in Florida and Texas and Alabama and Tennessee, et cetera, et cetera. Alrighty, excellent questions so far, everybody. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett. I'm here to answer all of your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. I am not here to judge or fight or debate or harass or bully. I am just here to answer all of your questions in good faith. So you're all welcome here, whether you are a Democrat, a Republican, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. I'm not here to yell at you or try to prove that I'm better than you or smarter than you or how many I've memorized way more facts than you. It is just trying to get to the issues, get to the core of things, get to the reality so we can all get past how we think each other is. People will ask me all the time, like, why are you for open borders? And I'm not for open borders. It's like you're already believing false things about me. You don't know nothing. You know nothing about me. Ben says, do you think the GOP will hold the Senate and the Dems will win the House? I think what's an open question right now is not whether the American people will want to switch the Senate to the House. I think that's generally pretty accepted in all the polling. The issue is where potential voter intimidation, suppression, and other sort of forms of chicanery that the Republican Party and Trump might try to do for the midterms. Like, I am concerned that Trump is not concerned. I am concerned that the Republican Party in general seems not concerned. I wonder if they have plans for trying to intimidate voters or throw out votes or seize voting machines or something like that. So I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can only tell you that if the election were held today and if it was free and fair, then the Democrats would probably get both the Senate and the House. Anything Debating says, do you think James will win Texas? I don't know, but I think he will, and I hope he does. Jack Mull says, do you think that the two-party system is sufficient? I don't. But there are a couple of issues that I have with people that criticize the two-party system. Number one, they tend to associate a lot of issues with the two-party system that I don't think belong to the two-party system. Like when I hear people complaining about like division and corruption and stagnation, I'm like, it sounds like your problem is with the Republican Party and the billionaire class, you know? So that's number one. Number two is the way you get rid of the two-party system is by voting for Democrats, because the Republican Party is the one that is keeping things like ranked choice voting from becoming a thing. They're keeping things from like electoral reforms that could potentially welcome in other parties into the thing. And three is I don't love scapegoating the two-party system as though there is a perfect political party out there for everybody and you should get to vote for that one. Like, better is better and worse is worse. So how about you just vote for the closest thing? For a nation that votes usually below 50% in midterms and primaries and shit like that, like people seem to be real fucking specific about who they will vote for. And it doesn't seem like y'all are voting for anything, All right, what's up, Mikhail? Good to see you again. John Abbott says, I think Trump gave Tallarico a much better chance when he endorsed Paxton. I'm open to that argument. I think that Paxton was probably going to win that election anyways, and I wonder if Trump was worried that he would endorse the other dude. What's his name? I forget. He would endorse the other dude, and then that dude would win, and it would look bad for Trump. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Trump could have swung that election back to, again, the name escapes me. All right, El Perro Toro says, what do you think about the Trump-Bibi blowup? I think that Trump is accurately assessing the situation in that the way that Netanyahu is doing war crimes and is stoking more wars in the Middle East. It's not like that was such an easy region for peace to exist, and now we got Bibi Netanyahu fucking throwing elbows around all of his neighbors, and it's making Trump look bad, and it's making the negotiations really difficult. And so, what's funny is that this is a situation of Trump's own making. Like if he had not allowed Netanyahu to talk him into this, if he had been more concerned about the brown people surrounding Israel as opposed to just Israel, if he was less concerned about building his stupid fucking ballroom and his arch, like we wouldn't be in this fucking mess. He is yelling at Netanyahu things that he should have yelled at Netanyahu a year and a half ago, and he's just getting to it now because he's just figuring out that he got duped by him. All right, Zalan says, hi, what do you think about the Hungarian prime minister? Don't know enough about him to talk about it. Mikhail Meme says, do you think the Democrats will win the midterm elections this year? I have no idea, Mikhail Meme. Nobody does. I sure hope they do. And so I'm going to be doing the work to try to make that happen. Mikhail says, what's your political leaning? I'm a progressive Democrat. Let's see here. Scott says, better watch it. Bibi will release the videos. Bibi can release any of my videos. Give me some more fucking views, man. Emir says, what do you think about Turkey? I'm sure it's a beautiful country with lots of great people. I don't know anything about the government there. Just a Tomato says, do you support Palestine or Israel? I support the citizens of both countries, and I am against the governing bodies of both countries. Both Hamas and the government of Israel are guilty of war crimes, so I think that both the people of Palestine and the people of Israel should get themselves new leadership. Goes with the Gozerian says, do you believe Ras Baraka is handling the Delaney Hall protest properly? So refresh my memory who Ras Baraka is. Is that a New Jersey representative or state representative? I can't remember. Let's see here. David L. Gore says, you a commie. I am not a communist. I am not a capitalist. I am not a socialist. I believe in a mixed model. I believe in having more of a Scandinavian model that has a little bit of capitalism, a little bit of communism, a little bit of socialism. We already have all three of those things in America right now. I think we just have a little bit too much capitalism, specifically unregulated crony capitalism. What is up, Lauren? Good to see you again. Spira says, is social democracy the best ideology? I don't know I don't know how people define social democracy, because we have some great politicians here in America that describe themselves as democratic socialists. And so when people say, so is that social democracy? Like, I've got no idea. If you are telling me that the politicians that I like Bernie Sanders and AOC, are advocating for a system that is similar to the Scandinavian model, and that is called social democracy, then yeah, I'm down for it. SK says, you say that, but do you have a job? I do have a job. I am a touring stand-up comedian. Let's see here. Gozer says, yes, the New Jersey mayor. So I'm remiss to say whether or not they're doing a good job handling it or a bad job handling it. Where all of these issues between the states and ICE are concerned, I'm pretty comfortable saying that it's ICE's fault. And so really the question is how efficient and passionate are the state representatives and the Democrats in the House and the Senate being at trying to push back on the gross abuses of what ICE is doing. But yeah, I need to look a little bit more into that. That's just me shooting from the hip. Sam says, thoughts on Hassan and Cenk banned from the UK? I think it's weird, like they did ban a few right-wing commentators from going over there, and part of this just feels like kind of centrism for centrism's sake. Like, I think there's a really big difference between some of the far right talking heads that the UK banned previously, and people like Hassan and Cenk, who, let's be real, like, I don't agree with everything that those dudes say, but they are not like openly advocating for violence the way that some of these right-wing talking heads are. Alan says, is anarchism good? I don't think so. Optimist says, how's the baby? Gemma's doing great. Memory says, how's the political state in Zimbabwe? I have no idea. David says, do you think Iran will invade the Gulf countries if the regional war escalates further? Ooh, that's a really good question, David. I haven't seen any reporting about that. I wonder if Iran's strategy involves invading the neighboring countries, or if they are mostly just kind of like in this war of attrition, hunkering down, fucking up global trade, fucking up the energy markets, and then just like protecting their own borders. Like, it's an interesting hypothetical, David, and I wonder if there are people who work in sort of like national security and intelligence who have more information on that. But from everything that I've heard about the war that Trump started with Iran and that Netanyahu talked him into, I haven't heard that as a hypothetical ever. So yeah, interesting. Theoric826 says, if you were to vote for any party in the UK, who would it be? One of the left-leaning parties, probably Green, because everybody's mad at Labour right now. Triska says, why is Rubio saying the war is over? He said that today in Senate questioning. I think that what their strategy is just to say everything and nothing at the same time. So depending on what interview you look at between Vance or Rubio or Scott Bessent or Trump or any of these fucking ding-dongs in the Trump administration, they will tell you that the war is over, and also we're kicking ass in the war, and also that negotiations are ongoing, and also that they've called off negotiations, and that they are just they've already got the nuclear dust. They don't have the nuclear dust. It's, they're trying to create an information chaos environment so that nobody can pin them down to anything. All right, Sage Handle says, are you pro or anti-Israel? I am pro the citizens of Israel the same way that I am pro the citizens of Palestine, Russia, France, Germany, Canada, etc. But I am firmly against the government of Israel. The Netanyahu government is atrocious. They are doing war crimes and genocide. So I hope that the people of Israel get their shit together and vote for different leadership. Failing that, America needs to stop sending them money and weapons. All right. Somebody with a whole bunch of emojis as their name says, where do you stand? I'm a progressive Democrat. Thank you, Daily Planet. I appreciate that. Okay, scrolling up. Okay, Mikhail Meme says, what makes you believe my country, Sweden, and the Nordics a bit communist, a bit socialist, and a bit capitalist? I mean, that is everything that I have learned about the relationship between the government and capital in your collection of countries has been that you guys have more regulation for your capitalism, that you have more social programs. I'll admit, I was kind of shooting from the hip when I included communism in that, but I'm assuming that there are some worker protections and employee-owned companies in those countries. So I could be wrong about that. Correct me if I am, Mikhail. You live there. Oh, right. Flamingo Moses. Which billionaire do you think will move to Argentina next? Fucking let them all go, man. Okay. Pakislao says Schmotrich, Ben-Gvir, Yitzhak, Crozier, etc. They're all worse than Israel. Worse than Netanyahu. Yeah. What an interesting typo there. Yes, those names all sound familiar except for Crozier. That's the first time I'm hearing that one. David says, who do you think will come out victorious in the Gulf War, Iran or the U.S.? I mean, Iran is winning the war. I do not think that America has the capability, or at least America under Trump's leadership has the capability to win the war against Iran. We are losing. The best thing that we can do is end it right now. All right, user says, but their campaigns in Gaza are supported by the large majority of Israel, question mark. I don't know. I don't know what the polling is like in Israel. But I am firmly against blaming the voters for the things that the government does, because information environments are captured, voter systems can be captured. Yeah, you know, I don't think it's a productive thing to do to argue about which groups of citizens are worse than other groups of citizens. Like my country, America, is doing some really awful things. But, you know, does that mean that the vast majority of the population approves of that? Do people in other countries have the right to get mad at me and other citizens without knowing who we voted for or how we feel about what the Trump administration is doing? Even people that voted for Trump in all three of the elections that he ran in are vocally against the shit that he's doing in Iran, and some of them are against the way that ICE is behaving and shit like that. Like, are we going to hold them accountable? Are we going to do collective punishment on them? Okay, Sage says, are you in favor of Medicare for all? Yes. Holland Artist says, how are the USA protests developing against ICE? Are they on the rise nationwide? They kind of go up and down. They do appear to be working. Unfortunately, the way that the information environment works in America is that we have these kind of like blips where we're really focused on specific issues, and then our American psyche just kind of moves on because the news media is captured by the billionaire class. Now, part of that is also that there was a change in leadership for ICE and CBP, and the guy who took over is much more concerned with keeping a low profile. So a lot of what ICE is doing is still as terrible as it was before, but they're doing a better job of like keeping it hush hush. Now, there was just a massive protest that devolved into state-funded violence in New Jersey recently, and that's kind of like an ongoing situation. I'm hoping that the barbaric behavior of ICE in handling those protesters and in the way that they're treating all the detainees will cause there to be, you know, more and more outcry from American citizens. I mean, we do have another No Kings protest scheduled for, I think, June 12th. So, you know, I believe that every one of those protests, there's more and more people at them, you know. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, says, or the auto pen. I don't know what you mean by that comment. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. June 14th, says Lisa Calcagano. June 14th. June 14th. They call me Dallas, baby. Says, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter? I'm for Black Lives Matter because Black lives do matter. I don't think that you can look at the way that the police sometimes just like decide to murder black people and think that that's like an okay policy. Okay. They call me Dallas, baby. Says, yes, they do. They do. Anna Byzantina says, what do you think of the EU? I like the EU. David says, do you think Trump will win the next elections? I don't. I think that it's possible that Trump tries to mess with upcoming elections so that they are not free and fair, but I do not believe that that the voting public in America is down with what Trump is doing, and if, you know, those elections are free and fair, then Trump and the Republican Party will soon be lacking the kind of political power that they have had in the past. They call me Dallas. Says, I feel bad that some of the people leading the campaign stole funds, but the message is still, I think you probably meant to say, healthy. at the end of that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about like the corporate structure or anything. The message is important. The message is clear. All right, Flora says, what do you think about Marxism, Leninism? I think there's some good ideas in there. Workers should own the means of production. What's up, Master Liberty? Good to see you again. Andrew George says, is history included? I mean, you can ask. I might not know. You can ask. John Bradley says, do you think he's going to pardon everyone around him? Oh, definitely. Yeah. Anwar says, do you think this war with Iran's bigger than the one with Iraq in 1991? Ooh, that's a really good question. I mean, it's potentially bigger. We are suffering in America from both a much less competent Department of Defense under Pete Hegseth and also a much more opaque Department of Defense. Like they've kicked all the reporters out, basically. And so we are getting some reporting from sources that says that, like, you know, our bases are fucked in ways that the Department of Defense has not informed us about yet, or that there are more casualties, or things are going worse than we've even heard about already. So I don't know. Thor says, are you related to Edward Bernstein? No, I'm not. Maybe I am. I don't think so. What's up, V? Good to see you again. Alrighty, let's see here. Mikhail Meme says, there is a party in the left that was communist, but they want everybody to be treated the same good way for everybody. So maybe some stuff are, but I don't know what is communist here. I mean, it all depends on how you define these terms. These terms are so stupid, but people really decide to die on these mountains of what their definition of communism or socialism is, you know? Liverpool says, ha ha ha, why ignoring? I didn't see your question. Triska says, what is happening with the U.S. and Israel combining militaries? I think that that's something that the Republicans in Congress are trying to make a thing. I need to dig into this a little bit more. I'm a little skeptical that it's going to pass. I haven't really heard too much about it. And the fact that it's not bigger news makes me feel like this is going to kind of like fade away into nothing. So I don't know if there's anything there or there. T says, should billionaires exist? No. V says, you think the story about Trump getting angry at Netanyahu is planted like the Gaza stuff in 2023? It might be planted, but I also think it's probably true. Like, Trump likes yelling at people. He loves playing the part of like the angry boss that yells at people and gets things done because he yells at people so hard, you know? So let's see here. Dan Turner says, what do you think about Tony Blair? Al Patozer says, favorite inconvenience to Donald Trump? Like, my favorite thing that inconveniences him? I'm going to have to go with reality. SFC Spite says, who cares? At least he isn't crying like you. I'm not crying. Do you see me crying? Your mom is crying because I just broke up with her. Reed Michael says, how did progressives affect both fascism and communism after World War I? Ooh, I got no idea. Henry says, what's your opinion on Margaret Thatcher? Thumbs down. Veed says, what do you think about Hassan getting denied entry into the UK? Seems kind of like centrism for centrism's sake. Like they didn't let a bunch of right-wing talking heads come in, so they feel like they have to ban a bunch of left-wing talking heads. It doesn't seem equivalent to me, like the people that they banned on the right versus the people they banned on the left. It just seems weird, you know, like pretty weird. Okay. Ken says, are you left or right? I am left. Scott Clower says he never yells at Putin. Well, that's a really good point, Scott. That is a really good point. Reed Michael says you should look it up. What am I looking up? Why should I look that up, Reed Michaels, about progressives after World War I? Okay, David says, do you think Russia will win its war against Ukraine? I actually don't. You know, for a while they were in a stalemate, but a lot of the news that's coming out recently is about how Putin wants to end the war, and it seems like Ukraine is really making some strides. So it seems like the goal of slowly whittling down Russia's support for the war and their ability to support the war financially, it seems like it's working. Okay. Officer Daniel says, is the white man being outlawed in old blighty UK? No. Goes to the Gozerians, and Hassan will be on the right side of history. Yeah, probably. I mean, I agree with him on like 99% of things, but the things we disagree on, you know, like if you have Hassan's platform and you ever say if so-and-so is the Democratic nominee, I'm not voting, then fucking shame on you. Shame on you. That is one of the most irresponsible things that a person with a platform like Hasan's could do. Ken says, I am an Aussie Green. What do you think of them? I don't know anything about the Greens in Australia. KW says, why in some countries you can't talk about the government? Because they don't have freedom of speech. Anwar says, do you think Israel will take over south of Syria? I haven't seen anything about them attacking southern Syria, but it tracks with everything Netanyahu's done so far. Noel says, what do you think about politics in Hungary? Don't know enough about it. Belgian Boxer says, what do you think of Bill Pulte as the acting director of National Intelligence? Oh, normally I have a pretty good read on all of the ding-dongs in the Trump administration. I have not given that guy my due diligence yet, though. My daughter is only 5 weeks old, so there's my excuse. David said, apparently Russia are just using reserves and not even their main army to attack Ukraine. Skeptical of that. Yusuf, I don't know anything about Turkish politicians. Jacob says, I guess you're left wing. You are right, I am. Officer Daniel says, educate yourself around Henry Novak and then try your answer again. No, I do not believe that the white man is being oppressed in the UK, Officer Daniel. White man is not being outlawed anywhere. So there's no... I'm going to give this Henry Novak person a Google. I guarantee you it's not going to change my mind because I just don't buy it. I do not buy that the demographic that has been in power for hundreds of years and is still in power is being outlawed in the UK. SFC Spite, sounds like you don't know anything. I mean, I don't know lots of things, but I know a lot about politics, especially American politics. Gozer says, LOL, we won't agree on that, but we are allowed to have different opinions. Are you talking about Hasan saying that he wouldn't vote for Gavin Newsom if he was the nominee? I'll fucking go to bat for that opinion, man. Like, let's talk about how fucking irresponsible that is. Seafalon, good to see you again. Ooh, new profile picture. Let's see here. Hasan is driving division, not just with the opposition, but also within his own party. I completely disagree with that. We hear a lot on the left about how we need to just sort of like buckle up and form a coalition with the center left. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. But are they going to do it with us as well? Because all I see is the center left trying to tear down the far left. Like, if you're spending more time trying to take Hasan down than fighting the Trump administration, like you are the one who has the wrong priorities, So yeah, I love you, Seaflon, but I just disagree with you on that point. Alrighty, Reed Michael says, social and labor politics, both ideologies share progressive enthusiasm for state managed. Okay. Leb says, why in Brussels only 20% of the population is Belgian? I have no idea. SFC Spite says, you guess about politics, no education on it by you. Mia, excellent block there. Let's see here. Somebody's name I can't read says, how to reduce knife crime in UK, what restrictions can be done, or safety checks? Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm not really too familiar with that. My general take is that the way that you stop violent crime is you stop poverty and you invest in mental health care. But yeah, I don't know anything more about that, unfortunately. Adam! Gotcha, Adam. I don't know what you call those characters that you use to write your name with, but I have a couple of people that's their handle, and so I was not able to remember that those specific characters were you, especially because you do Arabic characters. Yeah, you don't have a profile picture, so it's difficult to remember. All right, David says, did you know gas in Iran is dirt cheap as the government doesn't allow corporations to exploit? I did not know that. How interesting. Heavy BS says, remember, guys, Hasan believes that he, as Twitch streamer, works harder than people who do 9-to-5 retail. I don't know if that is something that he believes. He might have said something like that in a hyperbolic way, but if you are pro-working class the way that somebody like Hasan is, if you are a self-described democratic socialist who goes hard in the paint for progressive candidates like Mamdani and AOC, then you have that kind of empathy for other workers in the world. And so, yeah, I just don't buy that that's accurate, Heavy BS. Anwar says, was the invasion of Kuwait a butterfly effect for today's world? I mean, everything could be, but I don't really know if that invasion specifically is what. I mean, without that, but Gore wins the election in 2000. I don't think we end up where we are today. Okay, best rustic living Airbnb says, with liberals in Canada creating a recession, should conservatives just moves to the States? No. I don't believe that liberals in Canada are creating a recession. Steven Seagal fan says, thoughts on land value tax, and do you think that the left needs a more centrist figure? I do not believe that the left needs a more centrist figure. But the problem is that diluting the conversation about the Democratic Party down to too far to the left or too far to the right is glossing over important distinctions. For example, they came out with some polling recently that said that the majority of Americans believe that the Democratic Party has gone too far to the left. Now, what they dug into those responses, and what they discovered was that what the country wants is for the Democratic Party to be further to the left on issues like healthcare and the economy, but they want them to be further to the center on issues like immigration and policing. And so that is the distinction. Like, that is where we need to come down. Like, we need somebody who is an economic populist who believes in healthcare for all, but also takes the border security seriously and believes in deporting violent criminals and believes in supporting law and order and doing everything they can to eliminate crime, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's the messaging strategy. And, the fact that there are so many bot accounts out there trying to simplify it by just saying, like, too far to the left or too far to the right is, part of the reason why we live in this kind of like messaging quagmire that we are right now. I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying people do that. Bob, the original one, says, are you supporting Trump? No, I am not. B says, can you explain communism from a neutral side? I've only heard it from pro-communists. So there are a lot of different definitions for communism depending on who you ask. The way that I define communism is just workers owning the means of production. Seems pretty simple, but there are some people who believe that communism is more than that. It is the state owns everything and everybody owns the state. So everybody kind of owns everything. But I think it's much easier to think about anybody who is currently, caping for communism is most likely just trying to say that billionaires shouldn't exist, that the workers should own the means of production, that the people who create the value should get a greater share of the profit from that value, et cetera, et cetera. All right, Adam says, isn't that more anarchism? I mean, everyone owning the state, I mean. I suppose it could be included in anarchism, but I believe the principle of anarchism is just that there's no hierarchy, right? I don't know how anarchism works. I don't know how that would work out, I think that in communism, you would still have a hierarchy, to figure out who deserves what and who should do what job. I guess that would be the extra step of anarchy. I don't know, though. Ryan says, happy Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Absolutely. If you are a man struggling with mental health, please get help. There are people out there who want you to do good, who want you to succeed. You do not have to despair alone. You are not alone. There are people out there that can help you. Do not turn to fucking, what's his name? Sex trafficker in Romania. What's his fucking name? Kickboxer. What the fuck's that? Andrew Tate. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Okay. Etsetch says, you think idealism gives deeper purpose to the population than materialism? Yeah, I think generally so. But, there's a certain level of materialism that is necessary for survival. And so once people have that level of materialism, then we can kind of focus on idealism. But if we're living in the kind of late stage capitalist hellscape that we're in, people become materialists out of necessity. Dati or Dan says, do you do politics A level? If so, is it worth it? No, I did not. But if you want to go into politics, then definitely you should. H says, I've got a question. Why did governments allow corporations to have such power over them? That is a really good question, H. So I believe that you will get a very detailed answer to this if you read the book Dark Money by Jane Mayer. Regulars Take a Shot. Short version is that there were all these very wealthy people who suffered through the sort of like regulation crisis of FDR and the New Deal. And they all got together in like the 60s and 70s and were like, we need to dedicate our money to never having to deal with this bullshit again. It is a crime that people take our money and use it so that people can have food and clean air and clean water. And they regulate our companies. Like, we should be allowed to murder people with the chemical runoffs from our factories and shit like that. And so they worked very, very hard and for a long time and dedicated a lot of money to spreading propaganda to convince people to vote for the Republican Party, which basically gave more and more power to all of these fucking billionaires and business owners and shit like that. And because they were able to amass even more money during the Reagan administration, they were able to dedicate even more money to propagandizing people left and right. All right, Caleb says, can you repeat the thing about the Obama rumor of cages? I'm taking notes right now. Absolutely. Okay, so God. All right. So it's so hard to start this. So Obama did not put little kids in cages. What the Obama administration did do, though, was apprehend people who were crossing the border illegally and then separated the adults from the children to try to ascertain if the children actually belonged to the adults that they were with. Because that is something that the cartels and the coyotes will do to try to sneak people across the border, is give them kids and be like, look, they're a family, have sympathy on them. Once they were able to ascertain that they were actually the children of the people that they were there with, those families were reunited. They were reunited efficiently and expeditiously. It was abiding by the law. The point was to make the best of a bad situation. The point was to be as humane as possible with people who were seeking to come to a different country for a better life. That is not what the Trump administration did. What the Trump administration did was they separated children from their families as a deterrent. They were like, what we're doing is awful, and it's awful on purpose so that people won't come over the border anymore. But then they lost the parents. And so we had thousands of orphaned children here in America because the Trump administration lost their parents. Now, you could argue that it was incompetence because they were a very incompetent administration, but there were a lot of things that they did that make it seem like it was intentional. Like, they went to extra effort to lose the parents. Like, after they separated the children from the parents, they would then fly the parents to a completely different fucking state. Why would you do that if your intention was eventually to put the children back with their parents? They deleted the system for cataloging which kid belonged to which adult. Why would you do that if you were eventually trying to reunite the children with the families, etc., etc.? Okay. Thank you, McKelvey. I appreciate that. What's up, Missy Lane? Good to see you again. Alrighty. Me says, what is your stance in a political compass? I'm a progressive Democrat. Black Marvel says, do you think more politicians should be more moderate leaning for better bipartisanship? I don't, Black Marvel. I think that centrism for centrism's sake is a toxic pill that people have been using in order to push the Overton window, the political conversation, further to the right. If you tell me that your thing is that what you're interested in is in moderating between the two sides and in bipartisanship, then me as a left-leaning person, I am incentivized to go very, very far to the extreme left so that your compromise position is closer to what my actual position is right now. Now, we actually haven't seen the left wing of this country do that, but we have seen the right of this country do that. And as they have pushed further and further to the left, then the Democratic Party in some areas has pushed further to the right in order to compromise with Republicans. Now, I believe that reached a breaking point during the first Trump administration, so we're not really seeing that anymore. But that is the flaw of centrism for centrism's sake. Me says, would you be more leftist if there wouldn't be a Democrat? I'm not really sure what that question means. Average Joe says, because I hit the streak, you should feel contractually obligated to look at the link I shared. LOL. Did Sid Rosenberg create his own racial demographic? I don't know what that is, my guy. I don't know who Sid Rosenberg is even. I thought you were going to say because you hit the streak, then I should remove your character limit. Etsetch says, you think democracy is a mean, a goal, or both? I guess so. I guess I would say both. Like government for the people, by the people. That should be what we're looking for, you know. Mori says, what do you think about the participation of European countries in the SPEEF this weekend? Oh, I don't know too much about that, so sorry. Hamodi says, was the Obama administration justified in bombing the Middle East? That is a really good question, Hamidi. And if you talk to people who worked on the foreign policy during the Obama administration, they will admit, like, we fucked up in many ways. We gave the military way too much leeway. We were way too fast and loose with our drone strikes. That being said, like hindsight is 2020, you got to think about this from the perspective of number one, the Obama administration did have a mandate to go after those terrorist organizations. They had military authorization to go after those terrorist groups. Not what Trump does not have military authorization to do Iran or Venezuela or anything like that. That's number one. Number two is first black president and a Democrat means that if anything happened, if there were any terrorist attack that could be pinned on Barack Obama, they would have been pinned on Barack Obama. And so he was incentivized to be aggressive about stopping those attacks before they could happen. Now, I don't think that excuses that. And in fact, I would say that is even more evidence why we shouldn't be voting for the Republican Party. Because when you do, you say to the Democratic Party, like, we are believing what the Republicans are saying about you, that you are weak and that you are feckless and that you don't care about national security. And that causes Democrats to be more hawkish and drop more bombs. Okay, Mikhail Meme says, do you support LGBTQ and pride? Yes, I do. Frank Stack says, do you think the evacuation of Afghanistan was successful? I mean, it was a miracle that it was as successful as it was. The Trump administration put the Biden administration in an impossible place. They made it so that there could not have been a better withdrawal. They gave the Biden administration an impossible timeline. The Trump administration gave the Taliban everything they wanted. They gave them the fucking store and said, but when Biden's going to take over, don't worry, he's going to get the troops out in like 5 weeks or some shit like that. Ken Stokes says, that's BS. Do you really believe that Trump put Biden in a good position to be successful with the Afghanistan withdrawal? Because I can go in the paint on that fucking shit, man. That is something that I have been arguing for a very long time. All right. The number 33 says, thumbs up for bringing up the centrism issue. This mislabel is fueling the extreme leftist idea. Completely agree with that. Me says, sorry for my bad English. I'm Dutch. No worries, man. I'm learning a second language, so fucking good on you for being as good at it as you are. Would you be more leftist if there were more than two parties? You know, the fact that there's only two main political parties in America doesn't really affect my political beliefs. I mean, I vote for the Democratic Party, and when I vote in the primaries, I try to vote for more progressive, more left-leaning Democrats. But I'm adult enough to recognize that even if my politician doesn't win, better is better and worse is worse. So I'm still going to vote for the Democratic Party because the Democratic candidate is better because he's got the Democratic platform. And him or her being in power gives power to other Democrats that I might like even better. Kasem says, that is an incredible version of revisionist history. I mean, everything I said was accurate, Kasem. And again, I am fully prepared to support that argument. So fucking ask me about it. Asger says, do you believe any war the U.S. was involved in since World War II was just? I don't know. That's a sticky question. I'm going to say no, but it's a close game. Let's see here. Shpekov says, what do you think about Tsardom of Bulgaria? Don't know enough about it. Frank Stack says, would you ever vote for a Republican if you were a Democrat? I mean, I am a Democrat. And I can't imagine voting for a Republican because they have a terrible platform. Chili Supremacies, have you been to Canada? I've been to Canada multiple times. I fucking love Canada. I have done many shows in Canada. Fucking love me some Canada. All right, Misty Lane says, do you know there are new non-leftist working class advocates that are starting to gain steam? Should we talk to them? I mean, I don't know who these people are. This is the first time hearing about it. And I would be skeptical of anybody who is not left-wing advocating for the working class. Because what is your platform if you are a right-wing person? It is cutting taxes for the rich and cutting regulations for their businesses. Like, that has been their ethos for decades. And so you're suddenly telling me that you believe in workers' rights, but you're not going to pass any laws to allow those workers to have those rights? All right, Mr. Alex, that is not an okay comment to leave in my chat, so you are out of here. Kingston, I do not know enough about Magyar. Orava says fascism or communism. If I had to pick, I'd go communism. DeGreal says, how do you feel about Prime Minister of Albania selling a city to Israel? I don't know if that's true. I don't know anything about Albania, so sorry about that. Frank Stack says, do you think NATO would ever intervene in Ukraine? Ukraine is not a member of NATO at the moment. It looked a little bit like Russia was planning on expanding to attacking actual NATO countries, and so, but it seems like they've backed off of that. So I think that if Russia added more countries to their war, then yes, they would. Jawad says, what do you think about Hezbollah? I don't like Hezbollah. They're a terrorist organization. If you do war crimes, then you're bad. All right, Kingston says, what about Viktor Orban? Thumbs down on Viktor Orban. I'm pretty confident about that. Caleb said, how would you argue with someone who says Iran war is justified? Ooh, that is a really good question, Caleb. I guess it depends on what the reason is that they think the war is justified for. Because the Trump administration has given 1,000 reasons for the war, and all of them are bullshit, kind of. So if you give me a specific reason that they might argue that it's justified, then I could potentially tell you what the argument would be about. What's up, Mike Green? Thank you for being here. Frank Stack says, there have been rumors of Belarus getting involved in the Ukraine war. What are your opinions on that? I haven't heard anything about it. I have no thoughts. Okay, Jawad says, so are you in support of American taxpayer money going to Israel weapons instead of the people? No, I am not. We should not be sending money and weapons to Israel for a bunch of different reasons, not the least of which being that it is against the law. Platforma says, who do you support in Poland? I don't know anything about Polish politics. Borsted says, do you support same-sex marriage? Yes. Caleb says, like some people say, they attacked Americans for a long time and etc. Like, what? Doesn't seem, I don't know, man. That doesn't track for me. Doesn't track for me at all. Like, what are we even talking about here, man? Yeah, that is, it seems so not based in reality that I'm having a hard time coming up with an argument for it, you know? Like, what does that even mean? Like when did they attack Americans? And how? And I believe that we sanctioned them in response to those attacks. You know, what do we think we're going to accomplish there? Like, are we going to stop them from hating Americans by doing this? You know? All right, Caleb. So I agree with you. Just telling you what some conservatives claimed. LOL. Yeah. No, I'm with you, Caleb. Okay, what's up, Heinz? Let's see here. Mikhail means, is Obama the first mixed president, not the first black president, or is it both? He is the first black president. It's possible that he's not the first mixed president. Arongak says, thoughts on Lenin? Did a lot of bad things. Frank Stack says, do you think Republicans storming the Capitol was justified? Oh, no. No. Big, hard no there, Frank Stack. No. Illegal, reprehensible. So bad. Go to jail. All of them. The people that did January 6th, the people that organized January 6th. Go to jail. Get buried under the jail. Clean Fresh Edit says, who do you support in the Michigan Senate primary? Is that where Abdul Al-Sayed is running? Because if so, I love Abdul Al-Sayed. Marie says, was Obama good? Obama was very good. Clean Fresh Edit says, is Graham Plattner unelectable? I don't think so. I think that if the Republican Party can elect Donald Trump 3 times, then we can elect Graham Plattner in Maine. And here's the point that I think people kind of miss about the Graham Plattner controversies. This is evidence that we have a person here who has never thought that they're going to run for political office and is trying to be better. Like every single one of the issues is I made a mistake back then. I'm trying to be better now. That is exactly the kind of person that I want to be in office. All right, Caleb says, study Collins' policies. People say she would increase the deficit. Would she really? If so, not how. I do not believe so, if only for the fact that Democrats don't raise the deficit. The deficit is largely the fault of cutting taxes for the billionaire class and their massively profitable corporations, and tax loopholes and subsidies for their massively profitable corporations. And so, yeah, I do not believe that the Harris administration, without looking at specific policies, that's just not what Democrats do. Mr. Propaganda says, what do you think about Trump's latest words about Netanyahu? Did say nice things about him. I'm not going to give Trump credit for saying shit to Netanyahu that he should have said to him a year ago. Trump likes being the big angry boss and yelling at people and trying to get things done. And so now he's playing that part. He's already fucked up so hard, it's like there was a little kid standing outside the China shop, and he let the little kid in and said, go fucking nuts. And then the kid, like broke a bunch of shit in the China shop with his baseball bat. And everybody started yelling at the dude who let the kid in. And then the dude starts yelling at the kid, like, why did you do that? Everyone's yelling at me now. It's like, it was your fucking fault. We all saw this coming. We all knew this was going to happen if you did that. All right, Mashed Potato says, any questions about politics? That's a tough one. Who do you think is going to win the upcoming election in Kosovo? I have no idea, Mashed Potato. All right, Geomaster says, do you believe immigration is bad? No, I do not. Frank Stack says, do you think Scotland should have independence from the United Kingdom if they want? Mies says, what's your stance on the support to Israel from the U.S. while Israel isn't quite doing a morally good job? I'm against it. I've been against it for a long time. Excuse me. Pardon me for my burp. But yeah, it is the morally wrong thing to do to be sending money and weapons to Israel when they are guilty of war crimes and genocide. It is also illegal for us to send money and weapons to countries that have been found guilty of war crimes. That's just a law that we already have on the books. It is immoral to send money and weapons to a country that has universal health care while at the same time saying that our citizens can't afford universal health care. Like, fucking thumbs down on all of that. SBY says, what is a centrist? A centrist is, imagine each political party, the Democrats and the Republicans, they have two separate wings to them. The Democratic Party has the far left wing and the centrist wing. The Republican Party has the far right wing and the centrist wing. And basically, the difference between the two wings is in how extreme their views are. So, like, a far left Democrat might believe in universal health care. A centrist Democrat might believe, oh, we just need to fix the private industry, the private healthcare industry. A far right Republican might believe in throwing every brown person in jail. A center Republican might just be like, well, we should have a pathway to citizenship, but we should invest a lot in our border security, shit like that. Alrighty, Average Joe, so I think the attacks on Plattner are being perpetuated by centrist Democratic groups. A Democratic senator recently said that Plattner should drop out knowing that Collins would win. Average Joe, I'm not even reading your second comment. Otherwise, I'm going to fucking put my fist through the computer. Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it. I find it a little bit unbelievable that they would wait until I forget who the centrist candidate was that just dropped out of the race. Like, why would they wait until that person dropped out of the race before bringing this opposition research out? So yeah, I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but also, it's not unheard of. It's also possible that some of this is just people trying to get the bad stuff out there so that it's not a October surprise. Clean Fresh Edit says Democratic establishment was always against Plattner. That's generally true because most of the Democratic establishment is centrist. Sam says, is the 2008 economic crisis the reason for extreme politics today? as Farrakhanous says. I don't know who Farrakhanous. I don't know who that person is. And I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say the 2008 economic crisis was the reason for our extreme politics today. We've been working towards this for a long time. The billionaire class has had this as their goal for a long time. The Republican Party has had this as their goal for a long time. And so I don't think that that was the inciting incident. It might have been one of many, but no, I would not put that on there. All right, somebody whose name I can't read says, why America supports Israel's G-side. So there are various reasons why American politicians might continue to support Israel, even though independent organizations, including those within Israel, have declared that what Netanyahu is doing is a genocide. And it's a spectrum of good faith to bad faith. The most good faith reason that I could imagine is that all of the countries surrounding Israel have hated Israel for a really long time, and that some people believe that Israel truly deserves the right to defend itself against all of these various aggressors. And they believe that the Holocaust was a terrible thing, and they don't want that to happen to those people again. Look at me becoming more Jewish as I'm doing. They don't want that to happen to the people again, and and they just truly believe that that is what is necessary to protect the citizens of Israel. But there are a lot of bad faith reasons why they do it also. They could be scared of AIPAC. They could be scared of Mossad. They could be a religious extremist that believes that Israel needs to take over all of the Middle East to bring about the rapture. Like, there are people in the government who really believe that, we need to let Israel do whatever the fuck they want so that Jesus will come down and fucking zoop us all up to heaven. All the good ones, at least. So yeah, some of it's corruption, some of it's racism, some of it is, just political expediency. Charlie says, should Scotland be an independent country? If they want to be. Frank Stack says, do you think the USA should have left Afghanistan after they killed bin Laden? Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't know, man. I believe that the government of Afghanistan was asking for America to stay until they could get their military and security services strong enough to fight the Taliban coming back and taking control of Afghanistan. But yeah, I mean, the devil's in the details. It could have been done better. Yeah, I don't know. It's a complicated issue, and I think that people try to simplify it, but it was a very complicated issue. Gaines Fitness says, was the painter really that bad, or is it more Jewish propaganda? Yeah, no, he was bad. The painter really was bad. And we're not talking about his painting being bad. We're talking about him being a bad guy. Gaines Fitness Business. Good Lord. All right, Love Life says, how can we stop this takeover? By doing the work, Love Life. By doing the work. Let's see here. All right, everybody. I know Average Joe. You're all good in the heads. Mikhail Beam says, could you do a comedy show in Stockholm, Sweden? I could. I don't know if anybody knows me over there, so I don't know if I would sell any tickets. Okay. Me says, why are so many Americans against immigrants while many of them aren't indigenous? I believe that it is a complicated mixture of racism and propaganda, where people with a lot of money have spent a lot of money to convince people that don't have a lot of money that the reason why they don't have a lot of money is because of brown people and immigrants. And so they have been kind of like fed this line of bullshit for a long time. And propaganda tends to work better if the person who says that they are on your side looks like you and acts like you, and the people that they say are not on your side are different from you. And so these rich people who are just stabbing you in the back and stealing all of your money are pointing to somebody who looks different and saying, that's the reason why you got a knife in your back and no money in your pocket. All right, everybody, we are at about an hour, so I am going to start wrapping things up. If you want to support the show financially, you can. You don't have to. I know we're all struggling, but if you think that what I'm doing here is productive and good for the country and the world, then the mechanisms exist. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits on Twitch. You can be a super fan on TikTok. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch for free. Costs you $0, helps me out a ton. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, but there is a very fun incentive at $10 a month if you can afford that. Special thank to my regular funders: Pliff, Average Joe, Triska, Lauren, Grimacus, It's the Rocketeer, the two Seans, D, Shannon, Carmine, and Patrick. If you want your name read at the end of the show as well, be a Twitch subscriber, be a TikTok super fan, or be a Patreon member. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If that schedule is subject to change at a moment's notice because I have a 5-week-old. If there are any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, then please reach out to me. I want to be a resource for you to be more informed and more involved in politics. So however I can do that for you, use me and abuse me. Use me until you use me up. DMs are open. You can also email me through my website. Link is in the bio. Or you can hit me up on my Discord channel. Link is also in the bio. The Discord is great also because there's a community there of awesome people who are down with discussing politics in a non-douchey way, the same way that I try to do here 5 days a week. But there's also great recommendations on the Discord for books and podcasts and civic action that you can take to try to help solve some of this bullshit that's going on right now. And we only get out of this mess if all of us do a little bit of work. So do some work, go to the Discord, look at the work, and then do some of it. And hopefully if enough people do that, then we fucking get out of this shit without anybody having to do a lot of work. Righty. Direct Luminosity says, Jared, should infrastructure like rail and roads and water be held in common instead of private companies? Detroit is great. It really shows that private infrastructure makes the country a better place to live. I tend to lean towards the socialization of certain commodities that are very difficult for there to be any kind of like market competition. For example, right now we are suffering under a rail monopoly. Like, there's no value in a company owning all the tracks in America. America should own all the tracks. Maybe we would have high-speed rail now if we didn't have that shit, you know? So yeah, yeah, I don't think that Nestle should be able to fucking buy all of our water for pennies on the dollar and then sell it back to us, filled with microplastics and shit like that. Righty. Abdul says, Australian thief said he and his friends will pay for the ballroom. Well, he's lying. Frank Stacks' his opinion on Bill Clinton and Epstein. Bill Clinton was an okay president, but it did kind of seem like he was hanging out with Epstein, and he's also had other sexual scandals, so kind of like a general thumbs down on Bill Clinton. Okay. Clean Fresh Edit says, do you support abundance? I do, but that does not mean that, number one, there's some banana shit in that book. Number two, the authors of that book on podcasts after the book came out have said, like, oh, we got this wrong, we got this wrong, we got this wrong. So it's important to read that book with a fine-tooth comb. But believing in abundance does not also mean getting rid of all regulation. All right. Thank you, Direct Luminosity. I appreciate you. All right, everybody. I am out of here. So do the work, everybody. Do the work. And be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to other people to do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have an excellent Tuesday, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.